everybody. Thank you for joining our podcast, Moms on the Move. I'm Jen Wells.
And I'm Jennifer Sesk.
And this is Jennifer Mann. We're such basic ladies. We want to thank everybody for tuning in, and we hope that this conversation today is going to be helpful. So it's we already filmed an episode earlier, and it was about wills and estates, and here we are. We're about to dive into divorce financial planning. So you have a company called In Her Court.
Yes.
And you're the owner.
I am.
And you started this.
I received the designation in 2018, and I started In Her Court in 2019.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So I love it because basically it's like to empower women specifically and help navigate through a very tough situation, because oftentimes when women are going through a divorce, they're the ones that feel more overwhelmed financially.
Yes, they tend to be a little ill-equipped compared to their spouse.
Yeah. And so you personally had started this because of a situation.
So I did go through a divorce at a young age.
Okay.
I have a daughter in grad school, so I did everything a little earlier than most. But I actually worked in the investment field and saw clients that were going through a divorce. And the women usually just didn't have the information that they needed to, if their spouse died or if they were going through a divorce, then they're kind of the same.
Mm-hmm. Just like a lack of knowledge.
Which creates fear.
Yes.
Yes.
And I feel like people just kind of get into like freeze mode when they don't know what's going on. Like it's too overwhelming, so they're not going to like deal with it. But you're like kind of pre-planning and helping and you're being that resource for them.
Yes. And that's I would see that more often is it was so much emotionally that the financial portion, they just couldn't take it. So it was just like, whatever, I'm done. I don't want it. Just take it. And really, 20 years from that point is what matters.
Right.
They're walking away from, retirement or
because there's a lot that goes into thinking about this. It's the house, there's 401ks, there's savings accounts, there's
life insurance,
so
pensions.
So you kind of financially analyze all of that and give like a realistic picture of what this could look like.
Yes. And then I projected out 20, 25 years to see what it would look like in the future.
Such a valuable service.
It's incredible. In my line of work, we have a lot of women that I'm working with that are getting a divorce. And they need this. They need the support. And they need that voice because there's so much on the outside that they're hearing that isn't supportive and that frightens them. And sometimes they can't make the best decisions because they don't have the voice of support. Finances are scary. Even in my marriage, my husband is much more schooled in all of this than I am. And I would need someone like you if something were to happen because I don't understand a lot of it. And a lot of who I work with don't as well. So it's very important.
And you work with a lot of women who are just terrified.
They're scared. Yeah. And they can make the wrong decisions. They can stay in a marriage that they know is toxic and not healthy for fear of, what's going to happen to me financially? How am I going to live? How am I going to do this? All of those unknowns. Am I going to be okay? So you're a valuable resource for this.
I think so.
Yeah. You're needed. This is wonderful.
Well, and honestly, it's so crazy because I was looking at like the statistics, and I feel like you always heard like 50% of marriages end in divorce, and that's true, but it's higher down south.
It is. And so it's actually more often for second and third marriages than first marriages.
Okay.
But yes, and I think that number's gone down a little bit, but I think that's also because people are waiting to get married.
Yes.
They're waiting.
Because it was like the statistics showed the earlier you get married, the more likely you are to get divorced. Wow. Which is, it's interesting because I'm from New Jersey and all my friends got married way later than me. Like I was like, I feel like at this point a child bride at like 25 compared to my friends up north who got married when they were like 30.
Yeah.
And that's when, all my friends were having like their first or second babies. It's just totally different. But statistically, New Jersey has less of a divorce rate than South Carolina.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah, and the further you go, like west, it's more
divorce.
the rates are higher.
Wow,
Mhm.
wonder why. So
Maybe it's
interesting.
the warm air.
Yeah, yeah.
I think the cultures are all different. Everything's different depending on where you live in the United States.
Is there something like that's typical of what they can expect? Like, you know, if you're married for 5 years, what would they expect to receive in a divorce settlement? Is there something that's typical?
Well, in South Carolina, and I'm not an attorney, so I'm not giving legal advice, but in South Carolina, it's equitable distribution. So
Okay.
everyone thinks that's 50-50, but that can mean a lot of things. So that's probably what most expect is 50-50. But 50-50 doesn't always mean equal because it could have tax consequences later, which would take away from that 50-50. So that's kind of what I do is bring it all in, find it all, bring it all in, and then divide it to where it's equal.
Okay.
It's like
and then
equalization
kind of
chart.
give the woman the voice of this is what I want.
It helps with when she does have an attorney for settlement offers, so we can kind of plug it in and look at it to see, is this really in your best interest? Is this really 50-50?
And you work with the lawyers sometimes?
I do. I can work as a consultant for the lawyer too.
So now, knowing like what you know, what do you wish you knew at the time? Because you went through this.
I did, and so I was young. I was 22.
Okay.
I didn't have a lot to divide.
Mm-hmm.
I really just wanted my children, which I see all the time is, I don't care. I don't want anything else. I just want my kids. I just want to go. I was young, and that's what I did. I took my children and left. But looking back, I probably could have done that a little differently and probably should have negotiated a little bit more support for the children over the last 22, almost 23 years. So, I mean, there are quite a lot of things I know now that.
Well, I'm sure like a common feeling in the beginning is like, I want to keep this as friendly as possible.
Yes.
And so you kind of like talk yourself down and don't fight as much as you maybe want or could.
Yes. And I help couples in that. So I have in her court and in their court.
Okay.
For the couples that don't want to fight it out. They don't want to litigate. So I serve as a financial neutral in that case. To
like
where
a mediation?
Kind of. I am certified to mediate, but in South Carolina, you have to be a member of the bar to be a mediator.
Okay.
In North Carolina, you don't, but in South Carolina, you do. So I'm a financial neutral, as in I help both sides pull it all in, and we look at it, and then they come up with what they think is fair, and then they take it to an attorney to drop the papers. So it's a lot cheaper and less drama.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Tell me a day, like when somebody walks in brand new, how you help them. Because you're getting a lot when they walk through the door, I'm thinking.
Yes. I've seen many different emotions. One, that she's still a very close friend. She was married 47 years. And when she came to me, she already had an attorney, but she was still feeling like she needed some extra knowledge and support. That one was hard because, I mean, there are a lot of emotions that you're feeling. You're hurt and scared and angry. I mean, it's pretty much just stages of grief. So I do kind of coach them through that part, as in reconditioning their thinking that this is yours, this is mine, you get nothing kind of mentality.
Yeah. Right. I hate that do you see a lot of people that come to you?
I do. I see a lot of fear. And that's why I think the resource is so necessary, because lawyers, they know plenty and they know a lot, and you need that support, a lawyer.
Right.
But having this extra when the financial component is important, and especially for women. And, for many years I didn't work.
Right.
I see that a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
And we put our careers on hold and raised our children. And I did that for 12 years.
And that has value.
And I don't,
How does the court value that?
Well,
That's good to know. I didn't know that.
yeah, I mean, it has value because if you would have not stayed home and been the caretaker of the household, then he would not have been able to work and advance his career. You know, so you take on a different role in the financial aspect of the marriage.
I feel like that's really important for women to hear that.
It really is.
Because I have so many
Yes.
like people that I know that are stay-at-home moms, and you know, that gets overwhelming with the thought that it's not enough and it's not going to be valued the same as someone who has a steady income, for example. So
Yes,
does
it does.
the court you typically
I mean, I don't-
see?
I can't speak for the court because
Yeah.
I'm not an attorney, but the goal for me is always for them to reach some kind of agreement before it gets to the court, because then you're just rolling the dice. The judge it's up to him
Right.
or her to whatever they feel like divvying out. So,
Yeah.
but that mentality is very common. I see that a lot, that stay at home for 20 plus years raising the children, and then
Which is very hard.
Well, I had a client
honey,
that was home
I
for
couldn't.
I think 18 years, and was divorced and did not have a job and was terrified with 4 children.
Mhm.
And it was terrifying for her. You know, and things have worked out now, but how nice it would have been to have had you.
Yes.
Well, like
time.
knowledge is power, just like knowing, and then even being able to make like an informed decision, or you know what I mean, just because otherwise it's just so overwhelming. That feeling is so overwhelming.
The emotion of divorce is hard enough.
hmm
Going through something like that.
Especially when it's unexpected, you kind of have the rug pulled out from underneath you. I mean, it's
But how you're going to feed your family and how you're going to move on is overwhelming. And I do see a lot of it.
And I think it was like interesting because it said like 25%, I could be wrong, of divorce is because of money issues already, which is probably another reason it's so scary to want to leave or even have that conversation if it's like a toxic relationship, because you just feel like so overwhelmed with how do we, you know, especially if kids are involved.
yes. And
just
it's
so-
kind of a form of manipulation, I think, is a lot of being frozen out of the assets because of kind of controlling the situation with the assets. Like
Do you know,
not being
speaking
able
of
to gas
that,
in the car and
right?
cutting off
Or
the credit
taking
cards.
all the emptying the bank account. That's what I've had happen to one of my clients, where the husband just took everything out, and you know, in the end, that has to come back. But on the front end, it's terrifying.
Yes.
Does anyone know? Do you know if, like, if you don't purchase a home while you're together, and say you moved in with your husband and it was his home and his name's on the title, do you know how that gets? If it's
So there are some differences between marital assets and separate assets, which would be like before the marriage. Doesn't matter how it's titled.
okay,
And then you would have to look at if you put during the marriage, if you put anything into the home as far as to increase its value. So there's a lot of kind of things that play into that.
Yeah.
But kind of the burden of proof, I think, is on whichever side is trying to say is this part's mine,
yeah,
or I put this much into it.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. Such a
Same with retirement money. I mean, if you had a
Okay.
retirement before you were married and then get married and you're married, however, so you're 10 years, usually second marriages I see this a lot. They had a retirement account 10 years before, get married 20 years. And now they're trying to say, well, that retirement's not yours because I had it before, which is where I can come in and say, well, this 10 years this is separate, but this 20 years,
when you're together,
that's
so
marital.
it's kind of like prorated.
Yes.
Okay.
So how do they feel when, you know, we talked about how it is when they come in, how do they feel when they leave? Is there relief on their face? Do they feel empowered, feel better? Like Jen said, knowledge is power.
Towards the end, yes. I think I know all of my clients they're sad that it happened, but they have gone through the whole entire process and they're out the other side and they're a lot stronger than when they came in.
So if you were to give advice to someone who is overwhelmed in a bad situation and like needs to figure this out, what would you say?
Come see me.
What would they need to bring?
They don't have to bring anything at first.
Okay.
We just have a conversation. We don't even have to have names, or it's just kind of like what's going on and how I might be able to bring value to the situation. And then we kind of go through what's what. And if they are, so I help if you're contemplating divorce and during and after, I would say the major thing is to find out everything you possibly can about your finances while you're there, while it's accessible.
Right.
Like paperwork?
Like paperwork, take pictures, files, wills, real estate, bank accounts, credit cards, your credit reports, very important. A lot of times there'll be, joint accounts that you're not even aware of. Cryptocurrency is a big thing right now.
Wow.
So
how do you track sometimes these accounts you might not know about? Is there a way to track it?
She lit up.
Yes, I love doing the property tracing or forensics.
So how do you do that?
I think it's from having 3 teenagers. It's just like
is it like Social Security based? I mean,
no, Social Security is pretty black and white. I mean, it just tells you this, this, and this. This for accounts, it's fun. It's fun. It's like little breadcrumbs that are left here and there, and when money moves, and you just kind of connect the dots. And then I have to use the attorney most of the time to subpoena records, and then I connect more dots.
And you can do this behind the scenes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
So like without their knowledge, you can start connecting dots prior to.
Yes.
I love that. That is kind of cool.
It's so much fun. Especially when I'm like, oh, no, this is not what you do with this. And, oh, look what you did. That's not right. And so then I start making a list for the attorney. But it's, I like that part. Like I stay up late with my iPad writing all over.
What's the craziest thing you found? Like,
craziest. So usually it's hundreds of thousands of dollars that have moved over time to cryptocurrency or overseas, or just and so usually, and I don't even know where I remember the statistic, but the average person that is contemplating divorce does it for 2 years before ever telling the other one. So during that 2 years, they're planning.
Wow.
Yeah. They're planning, they're moving money, they're preparing. And that's
scary.
Yeah. So I go back 3 to 5 years and start looking at where it's going. What's new accounts are being opened, and slowly things are moving into other accounts. And
that's another reason I'm like so hyper about like women being involved in the finances.
Yes.
Like, because I have an accounting background, and so like I'm the one who does all our bills and stuff. And I think about this often. Like I could probably have 20 accounts, and my husband would have no idea because he trusts me with the money.
Which, I mean, it's in your name, so he wouldn't know unless he
it's in our name, but like he doesn't even pay attention.
But if you went and opened up 20 accounts in your name, he would not know.
Right. And that's what I was saying. Like, how would he even track that? He would just call you.
He would call, yeah.
I'm that person. He says if he goes traveling, he's got this file and he shows me where it is, and then this special note and this other thing for the passwords. And I remember all of this because if something happens to me, this is where you will find all the information.
Which is good that he does.
I was about to say that is great.
I'm not a Jen. I'm not familiar with it. He does all of the bills. He handles all of those things. So he takes care of that for me because I have.
Me and her husband are secretly twins.
Right.
I have an accounting background and I do real estate, and he has
he's a CPA and he does real estate.
Which, I mean, when you're married, even if you're not thinking of divorce or you don't think it's going to be a thing, it's important to know what if something happens.
And 50% of the time it does, which is terrible because you don't go into a marriage and a relationship anticipating the worst. You anticipate the best and romance and this and a happy family. And, but I mean, I hate to bring this up. It's so stupid, but I watch all my housewives shows. See, I'm not apologizing.
I watch the crime shows.
I like crime.
I
the
like those too. I go to bed with those.
Me too.
But half the time these women are like, I didn't know he had this whole separate property, and I'm like, what?
Or this whole separate life.
This whole separate life. This whole like, you know, I didn't know he had a house here, and it's like, oh my gosh. But it's probably easy again if the wife is trusting or the husband is trusting to.
And he's like, I got this. You got
that.
Mm-hmm.
I had a client where he was anticipating the divorce, like you said, years in advance, and went and sold things that she was not aware of.
Yeah.
And she had no idea. And they're already gone. And it's, what happens with that? Is it gone?
Well, that's another big thing is if you're married and even if, you know, you don't think you're going to get divorced, I would say be involved in your taxes. Don't let anyone file taxes for you, even if it's joint. Like, usually they'll just do it online or the CPA will just sign both their names. One of them will go in and sign, not even look at it, because you can be liable even if you go through a divorce or your spouse dies. You can be liable for whatever's on those taxes.
Read the stuff that you're signing.
Mm-hmm. Especially your taxes. Yeah. Because that would show properties being sold. Your taxes.
Be involved. I think we're in a place now where we all need to be involved. I need to be more involved.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I'm building a business, so I'm not as involved in my own. I am in my business, but not our personal. Mm-hmm. So my husband pays the bills, so thanks, Greg. I mean, I'm aware.
It's nice.
I'm aware of, you know, where everything is, but, you know, for the most part, he handles all that, which I'm grateful for. Mm-hmm. So I need to do a lot more of that too. But I think my reasoning is I'm trying to budget and manage a business, and the lights are on and the heat's on, so looks like everything's going
right.
You know.
Well, transparency is important, and like I said, he's got the list, he's got the files, he has the passwords, and we even have a person, he said, that could help me with this if something were to happen. So we've got good. Our bases covered.
So you have a financial like a financial planner. So I would say also, if you're married and you have a financial planner that your husband sees, go and be involved in those meetings.
Because it's not always just a divorce; it could be death, right?
Yes, okay. and it unfortunately it's similar process.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if your spouse dies, where's your life insurance? Like, where is 401k? You could have 3 or 4 different 401ks in your lifetime for different careers. Where are they? Like, how do you get them? I mean,
how do you get them? You call you?
I mean, I can. But if you had a financial planner,
they can track that.
They can help you. Well, if you have a financial planner, they should be pulling it all into one anyway. But yes, they can. But they got to know where to look. So you kind of got to know where to look too.
Right.
Yeah, we just talked about, again, like the conversation prior was about like wills and just how important that is, because it avoids such a headache, you know, in the event of a death. And I feel like this is kind of going hand in hand with that, because
it's a very similar process.
It's a conversation that's super uncomfortable, and you don't even want to think that, because you want to put your rose-colored glasses on and never imagine that that's going to happen to you. But what if it did? Just that little what if, just like preparation, I feel like is so important.
Knowledge,
yeah.
Yes.
It's so true.
Yes. And one other thing I'll throw out there.
Yeah.
Is your healthcare power of attorney. If you're going through a divorce, please change your healthcare power of attorney, which I always give. You can do it online, and someone is a witness. Like it's an electronic thing, but you don't want to go through a divorce and your husband be the person that gets to decide.
We talked
if you
about
live or die.
Just talked about that.
Yeah, we just talked. We literally just talked about power of attorney.
The heartache that go. Yes.
Because if something, I mean, you know, if you were to get in a car accident and you were not divorced yet, guess who gets to decide
what happens to
what
me?
happens to you?
Right.
I mean, and I'm sorry. I watch a lot of Snapped, but
hey,
but
we were talking about you have the grown children that may not want that to happen, and then the husband or the ex-husband or whoever's on that will says, "Oh well, this is what's happening," and it's heartbreaking, devastating.
Yes. Yeah, I can imagine.
So we have had some real depressing conversations for the holiday season.
Which is why my cards are more uplifting.
She gave us these cards. They're so cute. This one is speaks directly to my soul. It says sarcasm. It's how I hug.
Which is good too.
Which is true. And mine is that I picked out. She's got several here, and they're incredible. But it's life is short. Buy the shoes. And anybody that knows me, yeah.
Well, thank you. Is there anything else you want to mention real quick? Where to find you?
So I'm on all of the social media, Facebook.
In her court.
Yes, In Her Court, and then Instagram, In Her Court. My website is inhercourt.com. Pretty much anything In Her Court that I could purchase, I
love
did.
the name.
Thank you.
Super cute.
And then I have a Facebook group that is a man's guide to a woman's finances.
Love that.
Because, you know, my last name's Mann. So.
That's so cute.
That's awesome. I love that play on words. That's
I have so many. I have like a whole book.
Awesome.
The only man you'll need. Man with a plan. I could go on forever. It's great.
Well, thank you so much for coming.
Yes, thank you for
I
having
hope
me.
everybody like heard this, and you know, I know this conversation again is not like super uplifting and exciting, but just bringing awareness to a subject that, you know, maybe there's a little voice in your head that says like, maybe I need to be a little more involved, and maybe that voice is there for a reason. So
That's your intuition. You should listen to it.
Truly. So anyway, we want to thank you again for coming, and we want to thank our sponsors, Lisa Johnson with Fairway Mortgage is our title sponsor. We have Blackacre Law, Parmsmith Arch and Holt Attorneys, Southern Girl Chic dresses us, obviously my brokerage, Nest Realty, and Bodyworks. So thank you, and we want to thank our new florist, Gretchen Dobbs with Penny Posies. So thank you everybody for your support, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Also, happy holidays.
Yes.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.